Hey everyone, good morning. We are here with our good friend Dylan Gambardella, who is the co-founder of the Next Gen Summit. So we're going to be here with him for the next few minutes. Say hi, Dylan.
Talking to you.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, how are you? Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Now, as we drive through the streets of Manhattan, we're on 9th Avenue right now, heading to the next stop on our Future Innovators Tour. But before we get to our discussion, let me tell you a little bit about Dylan and the incredible things that he's done so far. Dylan Gambardella is an accomplished entrepreneur, speaker, investor, and activist. Named a Wonderkind and Melissa and Doug Scholar, Dylan is the co-founder of the Next Gen Summit, the premier conference for young entrepreneurs, and previously co-founded a company called Students for Students. The 23-year-old, and you do not look 23 years old, the 23-year-old Duke University alumnus has addressed global audiences at events including TEDx, Yale University, and UCLA, and is passionate about supporting young people and creating lasting, positive impact in our world. And I cannot believe I was able to get you to sit in this seat, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I want to dive right in and talk about your entrepreneurial journey to this point so far. And if you could share with us what your first interaction with entrepreneurship growing up was, and how that really shaped your outlook moving forward.
Definitely, and thank you again so much for having me here, Brian. Absolute pleasure to be with you and to get to partake in one of these incredible events that you put on. So going back to my high school days, I was a member of the Future Business Leaders of America Club. Right, no surprise given how things shaped up.
FBLA.
FBLA, exactly, for the win. And at my high school, this is during Obama's first administration, so we had very little on the food and safety regulation changes that he implemented, thanks to actually Michelle Obama, but we would sell lollipops in our high school, and we'd sell them for $1, and we had every flavor under the sun. And I really enjoyed the idea that I had something people wanted, and they would give me money in exchange for the product that I had. And it was a cool little, I guess, foray into sales, right, into what it's like to have something, have a little business building. I'd bring in my friends, bring in different individuals who I knew would be good at this. And before I knew it, we had done the best sales year for these lollipops in the history of FBLA. And to the point that our school actually banned us from selling lollipops because they became too distracting between periods. Everybody would be running in, hey Dylan, can I get the raspberry? Let me get the chocolate, right? All these different pile-ups would honestly build up in the hallways. And that was really interesting because then we went underground. So we kept selling, but through backpacks, right, through different ways. And we were solving problems, definitely not in an important way, but I think that was what I consider my first real entrepreneurial experience. And from there, that led my partner, Justin, and I, Justin Lapizan, who was my co-founder at NextGen, was also my co-founder at our first company, Students for Students, to think about what came next in our lives. And as juniors and seniors in high school, that was college admissions. So we started a company called Students for Students. That was honestly our attempt to tackle what a lot of our friends were going through. And that was a lack of familiarity with the admissions process. We saw a lot of our friends hire these essay coaches, I call them, not the ones who've been in the news very recently for some not so great information, but the parents of our friends would pay these essay coaches to help their son or daughter understand the process of applying to school. It's a very complicated time. Everyone behind me has done it well and succeeded. But if you haven't maybe had an older sibling, older brother or sister, you might not know exactly how to form your essay, right? What to talk about. And so we tried to create a marketplace that would connect the high school students with college students at the schools that the high schoolers were applying to. The very basic premise was that if somebody wanted to go to Duke, who better to take them through the Duke application process than a student who's actually at Duke?
Makes a lot of sense.
Very simple. We were not reinventing the wheel by any means, just simply connecting people from one side of the marketplace to the other. And we had a decent amount of success in that first year. So we launched it in my senior year of high school while I myself was applying to school. And then we continued that into my first year at Duke and had a lot of fun. We got to work with about 140 clients in places like Brazil. We had a client in Egypt, people who found us through the very early stages of Facebook marketing. And end of the day, we really just enjoyed learning more and meeting other people who were working on cool things, right? And in that time, it was applying to school, but for us, it was putting a little bit of money in our pockets, which at 18 is like the best thing in the world, and then building our business on our own, right, on our own terms.
It's amazing. So that this whole journey, your whole movement started with lollipops. That's priceless. It's priceless. And to think that you're able to really parlay that into what we see today with NextGen, which is really, the way I look at NextGen is it's an incubator for not just companies, but for young leaders. And it's a support system. It's a place where people can be open and honest with each other. And not just with your in-person events, but your online interactions and the community that you guys really work hard to foster. And I really thank you so much for having it as a member of the NextGen community. But just going back to the early days of when you and Justin started NextGen, how did the idea come about?
Well, thank you so much for those kind words, Brian. We are lucky to have you as a member of the community and a contributing member beyond that. So when we were in the beginning process of launching NextGen, honestly, it was a selfish desire that Justin and I had ourselves. With Students for Students, our first company, we started attending other meetups, networking events, major conferences, trying to meet other entrepreneurs. We were looking for that peer network, right? That support system, that resource hub, whatever you want to call it. And we couldn't find it for people like ourselves. We would go to the most famous entrepreneurship events in the country, and we'd be the youngest people there by far. And everyone would look at us and say, oh, you guys are 18, 19, congratulations, really awesome job, keep going, and pat us in the back and walk away and go continue their networking with other business leaders. And that's not what we were looking for, right? We didn't want the encouragement, we wanted the feedback, we wanted the peer network to grow with, to learn from and learn with. And when we couldn't find it, we decided to go build it ourselves. And we started NextGen Summit with the simple premise of let's get a few hundred people under one roof, and it'll be the best event of all time. We have no idea what will happen, but a lot of cool things will come out of it if we can attract the right people to our event. And that first NextGen Summit happened in the summer of 2015, so just about 4 years ago. This will now be our 5th NextGen Summit coming up in June 2019, which is pretty exciting. And not much has changed since then. Right? We've tried to, of course, add in new different activations from the community to local chapters and what we call our NextGen Business Hub, right? In an all-encompassing way to be a home for the business leaders of tomorrow, right? Maybe they're running companies that are 5 or 2 people today, but tomorrow that company might be 20. Right? Next year that company might be 200. And in 10 years, you can guarantee that they're going to be doing something influential. And our job is to help prepare them as best we can, whether that is a peer network, right? Learning from someone who has been there before, a mentor, or just having a group to pick you up on a bad day. Whatever it is you get out of NextGen, that's okay. We want to make it all-encompassing, so that way you can come to us for one reason and stay for another, and that's our goal.
And I'll tell you that we as members, we feel that, and the fact that you guys really invest in and take the time to really shape that. So I think it's a real credit to you and Justin, Rachel and Michael for everything you guys do. I think everything that you're talking to us about today comes back to entrepreneurial thinking and being in that mindset where you're ready for change, you're ready for disruption at any time, and it's just a matter of how do you go about it. Why is this entrepreneurial thinking important today, even for people who are not even thinking about starting their own businesses, but are just out there looking for a job? Why do they need to think like an entrepreneur?
That's a great question, Brian, and it is something that is so important, especially in today's market when you think about the job market, right, recruiting. You have to stand out at some level. And when we talk about entrepreneurial thinking, as Brian said, you don't have to be building a business on your own, starting the next app, right, launching a company, hiring people. You can be an entrepreneur. You can exhibit those entrepreneurial thinking characteristics in a company that's already maybe a 10,000 person plus, like an SAP. We left the tour and they were talking about the importance of science fiction, right? Thinking what's possible 20 years out, because 20 years out is going to be here tomorrow. And so if you can learn the drive, the hustle, the organizational skills, the wherewithal to build something, to really create from nothing, that an entrepreneur is probably known for, you can apply them in any setting and you are immediately at the top of your game. And you're competitive when you look at other people who don't have those experiences, right? Even if your resume isn't the strongest by name or brand or school, it doesn't matter. If you can perform and you can get it done, any employer will benefit from that. And so whether you are looking at building your business, just making the world a better place, or going to work at a massive company like SAP, it doesn't matter. If you can bring those traits with you, you will find a way to succeed, and your employer will recognize that. And of course, with that comes promotion and all the good stuff that we want in the working force.
Definitely, and it all comes back to what people refer to as out-of-the-box thinking, where all all you really have to do is just step outside of your comfort zone and see where things connect. It might be that you're involved with some extracurricular activity. I know a lot of the people watching this are involved with clubs, are involved with even side hustles, and really connecting that and what I like to call cross-pollinate those ideas and things that you do and you learn from there to your workplace or to your career. I think it's just a matter of being able to take the leap and just keep on going, even if you do fail. And we had a conversation with a mentor last week in our accelerator where she was saying, "You don't fail. Everything's just a data point." I think that's a really, really important lesson for just anyone. And it really echoes what you were saying as well.
I 100% agree, Brian. I think that looking at my journey, again, very short, not the largest experience to pull from, but we have been failing constantly, but it's feedback, right? And we take those failures, if you want to call them that, those data points, I love that analogy, and we apply them to how we do the business year 2, year 3, right? We get always a little bit better. Sure, our last 2018 summit was great. Can it be better? Of course, we're going to get better this year. Will that be the best of all time? No, we're going to get better for 2020, right? And keep learning from where we do fall short. And I think the goal of any business owner, when you talk about an entrepreneur or maybe even a small business owner, whatever you want to break that down into, you want to take calculated risks. And that is a big part that overlaps with the workforce in general, right? You don't want to risk your entire job on one decision, right? But if you can put yourself in a position where your company is doing well, your decisions or your business has been growing, then you can take a gamble, right? And that works for that new venture, that new idea that you can pursue because you put the time in to get to that point.
Definitely. And to echo something that you mentioned earlier, thinking about the workforce of the future and where we're going to be as an economy, as a global community of people who are functioning in society in the next 10 years. What are the things that we should be paying attention to now? What are the opportunities that are going to be coming down the line that we don't see right now that you might see or someone in your community might be telling you about? Yeah. What should we know? Give us some tips.
Yeah, not that I am at all the expert here, but I do, as Brian said, like to learn as much as possible from those who are the experts. And I think something that will continue to grow in just the larger economy, companies like Upwork, companies like Fiverr, where an individual has a skill, maybe it's design, maybe it's web development, you name it, and people want that skill, so they pay for that individual job, that individual contract work. I think that will be a larger part of how people consider work in 2020 and beyond. When we talk about today, everyone's working remote, right? They're working from their apartment, they're digital nomads, they're somewhere around the world, but they have internet access, they have Wi-Fi, they can be on the job. But they're still tied to, for the most part, one company, one organization. I think we will in the next 20 years plus see a lot of individuals start working for themselves in 1 or 2 roles that other companies will want to hire. So maybe that's less full-time team members, more contract work, right? More 1099s. So apologies for those in accounting that have to deal with this, but I think that individuals will want more autonomy in their day-to-day, right? Because it's a trend that you see in millennials, and now you see even more in Gen Z. People want control over where their time is being spent. They want to work for brands that they support. And there's no brand that you support more than your own, right? And so if you can bring that with you to your daily work, I think people will jump at that. And so companies that be ready for an influx of folks who say, you know what, I don't want to take that corporate job. I want to do the same work I was going to do, but on my own terms.
And there's nothing more empowering than working for yourself, following your own dream, and really furthering your own passion. And on a personal note, that's something that really drove me to start my own businesses. I was entranced by transportation since I was 4 years old. And I had the really great fortune of working for this incredible company whose bus we're on right now. So shout out to our good friends at Bus. We love you. And thank you so much for partnering and being a part of this experience with Future Innovators. But being able to branch out on my own and being able to follow the beat of my own drum and lead people as well and effectuate change, I think that is so very important.
100%.
Definitely. And looking back on where you are now from where you were, we have a lot of students who are with us on board who are just about to start their careers. We have a lot of people, entrepreneurs, students, what have you, who are watching this right now, who are either pivoting or in the middle of doing something right now as the ambulance passes us by. You cannot make this stuff up. If you had to pull together 3 lessons from your experiences to this point to share as pieces of advice, what would they be?
I think the first thing I'll say at a general high level is whatever you're doing, make sure you're in it for the right reasons. I meet a lot of young people who, as we're going on the roller coaster here, are looking at entrepreneurship as a get-rich-quick scheme, right? And they think, I'm going to build the next Facebook in maybe a year and a half, and I'll have $1 billion. I'll get the beautiful wife or husband. I'll get the car, the money, the fame. That's not really what it is, right? And if you're coming into the business of building your own vision, right, you have to know that there's a lot of hard work. And so I tell anybody, get some experience, right? Don't dive in fully unless you're in it for the sake of learning, right? In it for what comes with building a business. That's one. On the same note, something we talked about before, you have to take the highs and the lows in stride. The worst day of all time may lead into the best day of all time. And now building a business for 4 or 5 years for the most part, I've had some of the biggest business wins right on the heels of the biggest losses, and vice versa. And that's just how it goes, right? That's the flow of being on our own time, right? One email, one phone call can change our business, and we both know that. And so you have to be prepared for that, and it's not easy. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs do struggle with the honestly mental health balance there. And so it's about taking care of yourself, right? And taking the time that you need as an individual to put into your own well-being, right? And focusing on yourself a bit in addition to the larger company. And the third I'd say is just try through experience, right? I was lucky that I had different opportunities to learn on my own. But if you're a young person who maybe doesn't have that idea yet, you don't know where you want to be spending your time for the next 20, 30, 40 years, try as many things as possible. There's no way that at 18 when you're graduating high school or 22 when you're graduating college, you should be expected to know where you're going the rest of your life. The only way we'll know things like that are through sampling as many different experiences as possible. Go spend 2 weeks shadowing that doctor, right? Do an internship here and there. Figure it out on your own terms, on your own time. And there's absolutely no rush. If anybody tells you should know what you're doing when you graduate college, they're probably wrong. You maybe have the first idea, but that will change a million times over. And I'm blessed to be where I am today, running NextGen, running this incredible community, work with people like yourself, Brian. But I have no idea if that's what I'll be doing 10 years from now. I would like to think that we'll still be around in this fashion, but that would be a foolish observation for me to say for sure. Right? And so always be open, always keep your eyes clear for what is coming next, and be prepared to handle it accordingly.
That was beautiful. And I love the way that you're able to sum up everything. And really, as Dylan said, it just comes back to, you have to be willing to roll with the punches, especially if you're driving down Bleecker Street with the potholes. And, for every bad day you have, you're going to have a great day. And it's just a matter of just hanging in there and keep on going. And life and entrepreneurship, your career, no matter how you think about it, it's all about a series of experiences, and you have to connect them, and you have to take whatever you do today and bring it with you, take the lesson and move forward into tomorrow. And that's really where success comes from, is being able to pretty much erase all the bad stuff, take the good stuff, mix it together, and make lemonade.
I love it. That's the recipe.
That's the recipe. Final question, and usually when I ask this, the people are usually a couple years further out from college. But for you, considering how far you've come, if you were to talk to Dylan back when you were just starting college at Duke University, and give him one piece of advice, what would it be?
I'd probably tell my first year self to be patient. Right? And at that time, I think about where my head was at. I was not very much so dead set on being an entrepreneur. I probably thought I'd be working in downtown Manhattan, maybe wearing a suit and tie right now, and working at JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, you name it, those investment banks, because that was the environment I was in, right? So be patient, but also be open and follow your heart, right? And I think that I've found a path that aligns impact with actually being able to live a life, right? Sustain the life I want to live for me and my family, my friends. But that's not easy, and it's not always something you can rely upon. So be thankful, be patient, be grateful, and never stop.
That's great, and that's a wonderful way to end not just our discussion, but our ride, because we're a block away. So
Great timing.
You know, we plan these things. JJ will tell you it's like sometimes we just go a block, but you know, nevertheless, thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your insights, your experiences, and for just hanging with us and being a part of this movement that's not changed my life completely, but also is changing the lives of young people and people of all ages, really, because you touch so many people on so many different levels. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.